Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's called Mental Health and Writing, and this is my first video. My name is Michael Clark, and I'm going to talk about mental health and writing. I'm a writer. You think I would come up with a better title than that, but that's all I got. So today we're going to talk about medication. So I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 27. Before that, I had never been on medication. I had a very bad manic breakdown, and after that, I was put on all sorts of meds, 5 different kinds. Eventually, I got off all those meds. I was told I would have to be on meds for the rest of my life, or else the mania would come back. I didn't believe that, and lo and behold, it did. So I got back on meds, and then I decided to really explore medication and see what it could do for me because I have a chemical imbalance. My father took his own life. Bipolar disorder is very hereditary, and it's called a chemical imbalance. It's also called the biological dysregulation. So, something with my neurotransmitters or my prefrontal cortex or my amygdala is wrong. So what these medications try to do mostly is uh, balance your neurotransmitters, which is um, serotonin, uh, uh, dopamine, and neuronephrine. I think it's called. It's Let's just say it's called neuronephrine. I forget the name actually right now, but so that after I was diagnosed with bipolar. I got off the meds. I had another manic episode. I got back on meds, and then I decided to really look into medications. And so what I'm on now, after years and years of struggle, is actually working for me. So I just wanted to share with you guys. I have bipolar disorder, which is highs and lows, so it's manic depression basically. And I've been a lot more depressed in my life than I have been manic. So my baseline is depression, so that's a little tougher to deal with than the mania. The mania comes, I take meds, it goes away. The depression's tough. So I finally am getting out of my depression a little bit, actually a lot, and I just wanted to share my meds. Then I'm going to read some poems from Charles Bukowski, and I'm going to read some poems by me. I published 595 poems to date, so I'll never run out of content. All right, so all my meds here may seem like a lot, and it is. The first med I take right in the morning is what's called duloxetine, which is Cymbalta, which is an SNRI, which is a selective serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So it basically stops your brain from eating up too much serotonin or too much norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is like neuroadrenaline, so it's an energy neurotransmitter, and serotonin is your feel good neurotransmitter, as most people know. And this is 60 milligrams, and this is 30. So I take 60 in the morning, and I take 30 in the afternoon. Whichever one that is. Cymbalta. That's a good med for me. Took about 8 weeks to start working. Once it did, I had a lot more energy, less depression. Eventually, my depression came back. Eventually, these meds will stop working, or at least stop working as good as they did at first. That's why I'm on other meds. I also take, in the morning, I take saffron. And this is for mood and energy. It's actually an herb. And I take one capsule in the morning, one capsule at night for a total of around 150 milligrams. It's about $30 at your local health food store. Um, by the way, all of my meds are completely paid for by my insurance. I have one care. I have a disability. It's so bad, bipolar. My medical history is bleak. So I went in front of a judge. I argued my case, and they decided in my favor that I actually did have a disability. So I'm on very good insurance called One Care, and I also collect some money a month. I'm able to work also. I do have a job. I'm a substitute teacher. Currently looking for a different job, though. Anyway, Saffron has been good for my mood. When I first started taking it, I did notice a mood elevation. Eventually, it kind of stopped working, but I take it anyway, just in case. I take that in the morning. Another thing that I take in the morning, and this is one I want to talk about the most. Actually, let's go to my other meds, and I will get back to that one. This is a med. It's a mood stabilizer. It's actually an anti-epileptic med, but a lot of anti-epileptic meds, such as Depakote and this one, which is Tegretol, are also for bipolar, as they help with mania. So I don't really have a problem with mania right now. I'm pretty mellow, but this keeps me mellow, and it makes sure I don't get manic. Like if I stop sleeping, that contributes to mania. If I start writing a lot and have really high energy, I might turn into a manic state. This is called Tegretol, and I take 400 milligrams. The generic is carbamazepine. So what happens after 5 years after a med is released? They can make a generic, so anyone can make that formula after that, and the price goes down significantly after 5 years. Okay, so that's for mania. This med is for sleep and for bipolar disorder. It messes with it regulates your serotonin and your dopamine. It's called Seroquel. It's a great med for me. It knocks me out. I'm on 400 milligrams. A lot of people, some people use this for a sleep aid, even if they're not bipolar. They'll use from 12 and a half to 100 milligrams, and it really does helps with sleep. I forget the mechanism how. I take 400 milligrams. I sleep for like 10 to 12 hours a day, although I'm not working right now. And I could sleep for less, but nothing. Like I can't stop taking this med. I cannot sleep without this med. It makes me a little groggy in the morning, but I just have like 3 or 4 cups of coffee, and I'm somewhat good to go. But I can't stop taking this med. This and Zabalta are my lifetime meds. When they first told me that I had to be on meds my whole life, I was in my 20s, and I just was like, fuck that. But as I get older, it's like they always uh, do an analogy. If you were diabetic, would you stop taking your insulin, basically? And if you're bipolar, would you stop taking your antidepressant or your mood stabilizer? And it's kind of a stretch, but the older I get, the more it makes sense to me. Like I have a condition, I have an illness, and that illness either can be treated or not. And I choose to treat my illness with medication and behavior things. It's two things actually, but I'm not going to get into the behavioral aspect today. I will get into that next time. But this is Seroquel, quit quetiapine. It's a great med. If you have problems with sleep, like serious problems where melatonin doesn't work, you've tried everything and it's really killing you and you're an insomniac, you can talk to your doctor, your PC even. They might prescribe you this as an off label medication for sleep. I think it's worth it. And then I take Ambien also to sleep. My body got 10 milligrams, so you might know this drug is something that people, it's kind of dangerous because people can sleepwalk and do crazy shit on Ambien. It's mild to me. I've never thought it was strong. Also, my body's gotten so used to it, I could probably stop taking it and nothing would happen. But I actually got off of benzodiazepines, Klonopin, which I was on for 4 years, and my doctor put me on Ambien. So this, along with the Seroquel, helps me sleep. And like I said, this is a med I could probably get off of. It wouldn't matter. But right now, I'm not. I don't want to change anything. I've been changing stuff for the last 10 years and trying to find that great combination, and I finally think I found it. So, um, yeah, I'm not. I'm gonna keep on it. And a lot of meds, I know. This med I've been on for about 2 months, and this med is really, really helping. It's called Rexulti. It does not have a generic, so it's less than 5 years old. You might have seen commercials for it, where a woman is like, she's got this happy face in her backpack, and people ask her how she is, and she takes out the happy face. because that's how depression is. Like, you still have to live your life, you still have to go through your day, but sometimes you just feel horrible. Depression to me is not necessarily a sadness, it's like an extreme exhaustion, and it's really hard for me to get up and do things. Like, if you've known me back in the day, like, I wanted to be in bed, and I just, at first I thought I was just really lazy, but it turns out, I mean, that might be part of it, but it turns out, like, I have a problem because when I'm medicated and I'm feeling good, like, I don't want to be in bed. So my personality changes from, like, if I'm feeling good or if I'm not, just like everyone else's. I mean, I wouldn't recommend medication for people that don't have a mental health issue, but at the same time, everyone goes through these undulations up and down, up and down. With bipolar, they just happen to be more extreme. Um, but this med has really, really helped me. It messes with your dopamine, which is like your motivational neurotransmitter. Well, it regulates it. Messes kind of, it's like a negative thing, but it's really good. And my insurance covered it. Thank God. Like, it was a back and forth whether they're gonna cover it or not, but they looked at my medical history, decided that I might need it, and I take 3 milligrams, which is like the most you can take for bipolar. You can take up to 4, but that's usually for schizophrenia, which I do not have. I've never been psychosis or paranoid or anything like that. It's mostly just depression and mania that I've had to deal with. But man, this med is really helping. I will get into a little behavioral thing now. If you give me an inch, I'm going to take a mile, because if I start to feel good, then I'm going to start to do yoga. I'm going to start to do things outside. I'm going to start reading, watching TV, just being out of bed. And that's something that people with bipolar need. They need a structure and a schedule, and to be out of bed and to be doing things. So this med provides me that little push, and I actually feel good. And I really think it's because of this combined with my other meds. So it's called Rexulti. Um, you only really take it if you're already on an antidepressant that's not quite working as well as you want it to. So this would not be the first line of defense if you went to your doctor and you said, I'm depressed. They wouldn't prescribe you Rexulti. You'd have to be on an antidepressant for a certain amount of time, maybe a year or so, and you're like, it's just not doing it for me. I want to combine Rexulti with my antidepressant. There's a 62% um, success rate with this, and I'll try anything as far as mental health goes. I will get into that in like a later video. I don't want to get into everything in this first video because then I'll have nothing to talk about later on. But I've tried a lot of things, even experimental, very cutting edge techniques for depression and mania, and they haven't worked. But this is actually working. The thing about it though is, like, a lot of these drugs will stop working. Your body will get used to it, and it just stops working. So I'm really hoping, I'm praying that this drug continues to work for me, Rexulti. The last thing that I'm on is Suboxone. You may have heard of that. People that are getting off heroin take Suboxone. I wasn't on heroin, but I was on opiates. I was on pills, and I could not get off of them. I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to feel bad. So eventually, I ended up in a Suboxone clinic, and they gave me this. The next day, my cravings for opiates were completely gone. I'm on 8 milligrams, 4 milligrams twice a day, which is still a hefty amount. I want to drop it down to 6, then 4, then 2, and then be completely off. Um, all these medications have side effects. This has the worst. It has sexual side effects and constipation. The other ones don't really have a lot of side effects. So anyway, that's the med aspect of my bipolar disorder. I'll go over a lot of different stuff in this channel. Please, if you have any questions you want me to answer, I'm a wealth of information. I've been dealing with bipolar for 22 years now. When I first was diagnosed with depression when I was 17, and I saw a therapist. So yeah, I have a wealth of information on meds, behaviors that work. I've read a lot of books about it. I've really, this illness has defined who I am, for better or worse. All right, let's get into some of the fun stuff, poetry. This is a collection of Bukowski's work, Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame. As you can see, it's selected poems from 55 to 73. There's some really good stuff in here. I read it in my 20s and I highlighted some stuff. And I'm going to read three of his and then three of mine. And this one is a great poem. It's called To the Whore Who Took My Poems. Some say we should keep personal remorse from the poem, stay abstract. And there is some reason in this, but Jesus. 12 poems gone and I don't keep carbons, and you have my paintings too, my best ones. It's stifling. Are you trying to crush me out like the rest of them? Why didn't you take my money? They usually do, from the sleeping drunken pants sick in the corner. Next time take my left arm or a 50, but not my poems. I'm not Shakespeare, but sometimes simply there won't be any more, abstract or otherwise. There'll always be money and whores and drunkards down to the last bomb, but as God said, crossing his legs, I see where I have made plenty of poets, but not so very much poetry. If you're a poet, you'll love this poem because man, it's like you write a good poem, it's like gold, like. And then she stole him, and he wasn't using word processing. He was using a typewriter. Take my left arm, Jesus! Don't take my poems. It's a great poem. I love that poem. It's one of the first I read from Book. Um, this is a poem because I like this poem because it has a lot to do with me. Oh, yeah. It's called Living, and then I'll explain why at the end. I mean, I just slept. I awoke with a fly on my elbow, and I named the fly Benny. Then I killed him. And then I got up and looked in the mailbox, and there was some kind of warning from the government. But since there wasn't anybody standing in the bushes with a bayonet, I tore it up. I went back to bed and looked up at the ceiling. I thought, I really like this. I'm just going to lie here for another 10 minutes. And I lay there for another 10 minutes and thought, it doesn't make sense. I've got so many things to do, but I'm going to lie here another half an hour. And I stretched, and I watched the sun through the small leaves of a tree outside, and I didn't have any wonderful thoughts. I didn't have any immortal thoughts, and that was the best part. And it got a little hot, and I threw the blankets off and slept. But a damn dream. I was on the train again, on that same 5 hour round trip to the track, sitting by the window, past the same ocean, China out there mouthing peculiarities in the back of my brain, and then somebody sat next to me and talked about horses. Mothballs of talk that ripped me apart like death. And then I was there again, the horses running like something shown on a screen, and the jockeys very white in the face, and it didn't matter who finally won, and everybody knew it. The ride back in the dream was the same as the ride back in reality. Black tons of night around, the same mountains ashamed of being there, the sea again, the trade heading like a cock through a needle's eye. And I had to get up and go to the urinal, and I hated to get up and go to the urinal, because somebody had thrown paper, some loser had thrown paper into the toilet again, and it wouldn't flush. And when I came back out, everybody had nothing to do but look at my face, and I am so tired that they know when they see my face that I hate them, and then they hate me, and I want to kill me, but I don't. I woke up, but since there wasn't anybody over my bed telling me I was doing wrong, I slept some more. When I woke up this time, it was almost evening. People were coming in from work. I got up and sat in a chair and watched them coming in. They didn't look so good. Even the young girls didn't look so good as when they left. And the men came in, hatchet men, killers, thieves, con men, the whole bunch, and their faces were more horrible than any Halloween mask ever devised. Oh, there's more. I found a blue spider in the corner and killed him with a broom. I looked at the people a while more, and then I got tired and stopped looking and fried myself a couple of eggs and sat down and had some tea and bread with it. I felt fine. Then I took a bath and went back to bed. That poem's called Living, and God, it's like my life, you know? It just resonates with me. Being in bed and just watching people go to work and just, I don't know. I just love it. I just love that poem. And this last poem is funny, and I'll tell you why I like it afterwards. It's called Trouble with Spain, 204. This poem's hilarious. I got in the shower and burned my balls last Wednesday. Met this painter called Spain. No, he was a cartoonist. Well, I met him at a party, and everybody got mad at me because I didn't know who he was or what he did. He was rather a handsome guy, and I guess he was jealous because I was so ugly. They told me his name, and he was leaning against the wall, looking handsome, and I said, "Hey, Spain, I like that name, Spain, but I don't like you. Why don't we step in the garden and I'll kick the shit out of your ass?" This made the hostess angry, and she walked over and rubbed his pecker, while I went to the crapper and heaved. But everybody's angry at me. Bukowski, he can't write, he's had it. Washed up, look at him drink. He never used to come to parties. Now he comes to parties and drinks everything up, and insults real talent. I used to admire him when he cut his wrists, and when he tried to kill himself with gas. Look at him now, leering at that 19-year-old girl. And you know he can't get it up. Not only burnt my balls in the shower last I not only burnt my balls in the shower last Wednesday, I spun around to get out of the burning water and burnt my bunghole too. It's a great poem. I never knew like you could call that a poem. I read Bukowski and I was like, wow, that's hilarious. Like he's talking about kicking the shit out of a painter and how he's washed up, and it's just like I get it too. It's funny to me. Like, and then, he burned his pecker, and then he saw Spain, and he burned his bunghole. And it's just like, it's fucking life, man. So, I'm gonna read some poems too. Two of them are about Bukowski, and one of them isn't. I was gonna read "We the Artists," but by Bukowski. I actually got this name. He writes a poem called "We the Artists," which I'm not gonna read, but I will read "Us the Artists" by me. And this is my original copy of Help Wanted. It's limited to 500 copies. I published this in 2007. It cost me $3,000 to publish 500 copies, and there's still some floating around, but not many. If you have one of these, by the way, you're probably a good friend of mine, and I don't know, might be worth something someday, probably after I die, but maybe you'll still be around. This one's called Us the Artists. No, I'm not saying that I'm a very good person, but my old roommate was a little worse. She brought with her from LA a big white canvas, some brushes, some colors, and she told me one thing. "I'm a painter," she shouted. Well, I lived with her for 5 months. The canvas stayed white, the brushes clean, and I could have sworn that towards the end she was using the colors in lieu of eye makeup. This whole ordeal was pretty funny, but other ordeals weren't so funny, like the times every single she shorted me on rent, or when she drank up all my wine, or when she threw a beer bottle through the kitchen window at 6 a.m. because she was so intoxicated she somehow got it into her head that her computer had been stolen. Of course, I paid for the window to get repaired, but before any of that stuff happened, she told me one other thing. "I'm a writer," she shouted, and one of us seemed to believe it like it was the 11th commandment. No, I'm not saying that I'm a very good person, so maybe that one will eventually hold true. So, I'm obviously been influenced by Bukowski. This whole book has Bukowski all over it. Um, I'm going to read a poem that I almost put into Help Wanted, but I got some feedback and they're like, no, it's a little too obvious, so I left it out. But anyway, nobody's really heard or read this poem before. It's called Always. When I read Bukowski, I grunt, I bark, I swear. I yell things like, a drawbridge, a fucking drawbridge. See, Holly's leaving town. And then I sigh to myself, and I say to myself, or to anyone else who may be listening, "Oh Henry, oh Hank, oh Charles and Book, you truly were one of the last bastard children of the Almighty God Himself." And then I grunt again, "Arr!" And it's louder this time, with even more emphasis on the "arr." And when all this nonsense is finished, I put Bukowski down for a bit, but I always pick him up again. And sometimes I'll come across a poem like "The Insane Always Loved Me," and this one doesn't make me grunt, but it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh so hard that I cry, and I really do cry, because it's one of the funniest things I've ever read, and also one of the saddest, and one of the most human. And with all these emotions hitting me at the same time, my eyes well up, and I almost lose it, thinking I might actually be in love with a dead guy. So, in conclusion, not a hell of a lot does it for me these days, or any other days for that matter. But when I read Bukowski, well, I think you get the drift. And that's all I'm going to say about that for the time being. So I left that one out of Help Wanted, but I wrote that in 2007. It's just kind of dangling around. I'm never going to publish it. Um, this one I published in 100 Love Poems in 2018, 19, because it's a love poem, obviously. We were talking about books in the bar by my house, and she wanted to know if I've read any Proust. When I told her I hadn't, she went on to Twain, and when I said just a little, I could feel her disdain. And then it was Kafka, then Melville, then Huxley, then it was Flaubert, then Dickens, then Rushdie, and then it was Joyce, then Faulkner, then Keats, then Lawrence, then London, then Steinbeck, then Yeats, then Warden, then Orwell, then Beckett, then Milton, then Hawthorne, then Shelley, then Wordsworth, then Whitman. And when she was finished, I said, "Not very much," and she shook her head in utter disgust and told me I'm hopeless, but I disagreed. Because when asked who I like, I yell, Bukowski! Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I'll have more on mental health and more poems. Mental health and writing. Peace, y'all. Peace and love.